Greetings. This is part 2 of my CEDU story. Firstly, I would like to talk to the Breaking Code Silence members who took issue with some of the celebrity references I made in my last video. I was accused in very harsh terms by many of their members as outing survivors, so I wanted to address that. I thought a little bit about this and I realized that there was a bit of a disconnect between myself and many of the activists from the Breaking Code Silence movement. And I think it's worthwhile clearing this up since we're both treading on the same subject matter. And not only that, but the subject matter itself, the troubled teen industry and CEDU, is a very sensitive topic for many who were in these schools or facilities. One thing I certainly recognize is that many people involved in the BCS movement have left one of these facilities much more recently than I have. Therefore, they're still affected by their experience in an acute way, whereas I have had a long time to decompress and move on from my years in adolescent treatment. I'm very sympathetic to this. I remember being thrust into the world after 26 months of programming in these schools, and for me it was extremely chaotic. In regards to the accusations of me outing survivors by the BCS activists, I would first like to say that the term survivor itself is your term. It's new. Up until recently, I had not heard it used to describe former participants in one of the CEDU style programs. If others are using that term, then fine. I'm not sure what your experience was like. So that part is not applicable to me. I never thought of myself or the people I went to CEDU with in the terms survivor, with that term. Secondly, I'm not beholden or subject to any confidentiality or anonymity agreement pertaining to any of the CEDU schools that I went to. I don't have any agreement in place with them. I'm allowed to say who I went to school with. CEDU is where I graduated high school. Having said that, I completely understand that CEDU and other schools like it have, for very good reason, a dubious reputation. And that's why I didn't name the people I referred to. I said the son of the lead guitarist of the Eagles was my roommate. There have been 9 members of the Eagles. All of them have played lead guitar for the band, including the drummer Don Henley, and many of them have credit on the song that I mentioned. There's no one that can figure out which Eagle it was or what his son's name is. The reason I didn't name him specifically is not because I'm prohibited from doing so, but more so out of respect for him. He's a nice guy. Now you may ask why I would mention it at all. Well, because I like the Eagles. And I thought recalling that part of my CEDU experience, along with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, would add some nostalgic ambiance to my story, which could offset the harshness of the part about the serial killer trying to lure me into his rape wagon. The Eagles have not contacted me about this, by the way, either, so I think I'm in the clear. A number of activists lashed out at me and called me white privilege, and then proceeded to write long lectures to me on what my conduct should be like when approaching the topic of the troubled teen industry. I'm not even going to dispute whether that is racist or not. All I know is that it is not only disrespectful, but it's silly. The spokesperson for your movement is Paris Hilton. I know people who were there when she went. She was there for less than a week. And according to the Breaking Code Silence movement, she's a survivor. I was there for 26 months. And I experienced the entire suite of services that CEDU had to offer, both in Running Springs and in Idaho. Paris Hilton is a very talented businesswoman, but her brand identity is that of a heiress who sells perfume and lives in Beverly Hills. It's silly that you consider me white privilege and her a survivor. I think you people need to give your head a shake on that. This isn't me lashing out at Paris Hilton. I'm actually glad that she took it upon herself to bring this issue to the attention of the world. Many years ago, I left Northwest Academy and was sent into the world. I may have tried to explain to a couple of people what I had been through for the last 2.5 years when I got out, but I remember them getting very uncomfortable and they looked at me weird. So I never spoke about it again. No one I knew had ever gone through or even heard of anything like CEDU. Looking back, it took me years to decompress and unlearn the combative and antisocial patterns that were ingrained into me at a very early and critical stage in my life. Being able to talk about this now, where there is some understanding of the troubled teen industry, is nice, and I'm grateful to those who have made it an issue. Some factors should be taken into consideration, though. Some kids do need discipline and an alternative to youth jail. If you were able to shut down all the RTCs that are for teens tomorrow, invariably many of the youth in these facilities would be arrested for something and they'd be sent to youth jail. In there, kids are a lot rougher, and in there, one of two things will probably happen. Your son or daughter is going to get assaulted viciously, beaten, stabbed, or potentially killed, or they'll end up in a gang having to beat and stab others, and they could end up coming out of there with gang tattoos on their face. And if you're not a multi-millionaire rapper, you're probably going to have problems like that. My entire experience in the troubled teen industry can be summed up as an equation. What I got out of it was 26 months of sobriety at a crucial age for brain development in exchange for the mental health complications that come from being in a psychologically and emotionally combative program for 26 months and being hounded by a serial killer. A lot of problems with these RTCs would be solved with cameras and audio everywhere. Sometimes staff are abusive, and sometimes troubled teens make up phony allegations to get out of things. If there's going to be a responsible treatment center for youth, just mic the facilities and have cameras everywhere like they have in adult rehabs. Maybe have a monitor show up once a month to observe things. This brings me to my final point. I can tell any of you that have recently got out of one of these programs with certainty that you can not only turn the page from these nightmares that you've been through, you can harness all this turmoil and suffering for wisdom. If you're going through one horrendous experience after another, it's my belief that God is testing you and allowing you to be tormented for your own personal growth. People that mosey through life, often getting their way, are not winning. They're not being tested. They're not building in spiritual wisdom or sincere empathy. As of late, I've heard all sorts of normal people melting down and having nervous breakdowns over this quarantine and pandemic. Whereas I'm not really suffering at all. It all seems very ho-hum in comparison to worse experiences that I've endured. When you get past the trauma of it all, I think this will fade and it will seem like a weird and distant memory that will no longer have a domineering and oppressive effect on you. I wish that for all of you that went through this. And thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it.